Hello, friends. Once again, I welcome you for my lecture number 2 for your physics paper 3502, unit number 4. Friends, I'm really happy to see you once again on this virtual platform. During my lecture number 1, I taught you the polarization of an atom, and I said uh, that there is a induced dipole moment, and the induced dipole moment is proportional to the applied electric field. And I gave you the concept of atomic polarizability. And today we would like to understand the polarization of a molecule. See, I told you that whenever you have a molecule and when you study the process of polarization of a molecule is a little bit complex because it is found that in certain direction molecule is easily polarized, and there are certain direction in which polarization of molecule is is complex. So we would like to understand that why polarization of a molecule is complex. So to understand this, let us consider a simple case. I consider the case of a CO2 molecule. And you know that as you see, this is mentioned, I have mentioned a CO2 molecule. It's a linear molecule, and you can see that this carbon atom is is forming a bond between the two oxygen atom. And you see that this molecule, CO2 molecule, there are two axes which you can imagine. There is an axis which you consider as an internuclear axis, which is passing from the center of all the atom along the x direction. So this axis you may consider as an internuclear axis, and you can also consider an axis which is normal to the internuclear axis along y direction. So now suppose if you apply your external electric field along the internuclear axis, that is suppose along the x direction, and if you study the polarization of this CO2 molecule, and if you find the value of alpha, then the alpha means polarizability, you will find that it is of the order of 4.5 into 10 raised to minus 40 coulomb square meter divided by Newton. This is an SI unit. Now, at the same time, suppose if you apply your electric field which is perpendicular to the internuclear axis, that is, if you apply your electric field along y direction, and if you study the polarization of this molecule, and if you compute the polarizability, you will find alpha is of the order of 2 multiplied by 10 to the power of minus 40 coulomb square meter per Newton. It is almost half of the value which you observed along the internuclear axis. So you see that one can say that the molecule is easily polarized along the internuclear axis here. At the same time, you can also apply your electric field which is making angles theta with the internuclear axis. Look at that. This is the, you can see this is the axis where you apply your electric field, and this axis is making some angle theta with the internuclear axis. In that case, you can resolve your electric field into two components. So you have a component of electric field along the internuclear axis, that is along the reference axis which you have considered, and that is known as E parallel component of electric field. and you have a perpendicular component of electric field which is along the perpendicular axis, which is normal to the internuclear axis. So because of this parallel component of the electric field, there will be a polarizability, because it will because of this parallel component of the electric field, you will have a polarizability, and that polarizability I will refer as alpha parallel. So you will have to write down your equation of induced dipole moment into the two component of polarizability. You will see, because you have a parallel component, you have an induced dipole moment along this direction, and you have a perpendicular component. So you have a component of induced dipole moment along the perpendicular directions. So you have the polarizability along the along this internuclear axis, and you have a polarizability along the perpendicular axis. So if you will write down the value of, you write the induced dipole moment vector P in a vectorial form. You may write down P is basically a vector sum of P perpendicular, that is the component, you can say the induced dipole moment along the perpendicular direction, and P parallel vector, which you can write down as induced dipole moment along the parallel axis. So if you use the relationship P is equal to alpha times E, which we have mentioned in the first lecture, so I can write down that P perpendicular uh, vector, you can write down, is equal to uh, alpha perpendicular, which is known as the polarizability in a perpendicular direction, into E perpendicular component of vector, and you have alpha parallel, that is the polarizability in the in the direction along the internuclear axis, and you have a parallel component of the electric field. So this is the relationship which you observe when your vector P is making angle theta. And in this case, please remember that the induced dipole moment may not be even in the same direction of electric field. You see, when you keep your atom in the electric field, I told you that the induced dipole moment vector P will be found, and the direction of induced dipole moment vector phi will be in the direction of applied electric field E. But when your vector E, that is the external electric field, is making angle theta with your reference axis, in that case, it is not necessary that induced dipole moment lie in the direction of applied electric field. Well, friend, this is a very simple case in which it demonstrates that there are certain direction in the molecule where molecule is easily polarized. But now you have some asymmetric molecules, or there are some complex molecule, and when you keep asymmetric molecules in the electric field, to study the polarization of asymmetric molecules or a complex molecule, we have to take care about the coordinate axis. So you have to consider a coordinate axis, and consider that you have your complex molecule which is placed in the uniform electric field, and if you want to write down the equations between the vector P and vector E, you have to resolve your vector E into the coordinate components. So if you have considered the Cartesian coordinate system, then you have to resolve your vector E into the component of electric field. So since you have a three direction, X direction, Y directions, and Z direction, you have to resolve your electric field. So you will get the three component of electric field. You will get EX component, EY component, and EZ component. So because of the X component of the electric field, you will have the component of induced dipole moment Px because of the X component of electric field. You have the Y component of the electric field. You will have the induced dipole moment component along the Y direction, and similarly for the Z directions. So in that case, you can have a linear relationship between P and E. And you see, I wrote the three equation here. Look at the first equation which I wrote here, that Px. This Px is representing the X component of the induced dipole moment, right? And which I wrote down by a factor alpha xx. Then I write down the Ex component of the electric field. I write down alpha xy. Then you have the Y component of the electric field. Then I write down alpha xz, and you have a Z component of the electric field. Very important thing which I want to demonstrate is that for having the X component of the induced dipole moment, you see that X component of the induced dipole moment is caused by not only X component of electric field, but it is also caused by Y component of the electric field and the Z component of the electric field. Similarly, you have the Y component of the induced dipole is not only caused by the Y component of the electric field, it is caused by the X component of the electric field as well as the Z component of the electric field. And same way, the Z component of the induced dipole moment is not only caused by the Z component of the electric field, but it is also caused by the X component of the electric field and the Y component of the electric field. Friends, here I write down the set of constant. You see, I write down alpha xx, alpha xy, alpha xz, alpha yx, alpha yy, alpha yz, alpha zx, alpha zy, alpha z. That is basically, you write more generally, this set of 9 constant which I wrote here, this alpha ij, which is basically constitute the polarizability tensor for the molecule. So here I have mentioned this polarizability tensor alpha, and you see there is a notation of the tensor. Both the side you have an arrow. So this is the notation of a tensor, and I mentioned a polarizability tensor as basically, you can write down alpha xx, alpha xy, alpha xz, alpha yx, alpha yy, alpha yz, alpha zx, alpha zy, alpha zz. So basically, this polarizability tensor which we have mentioned here. And now the problem is that since we are a physics student and we have a freedom to select the coordinate axis, so we select a coordinate axis in such a manner that we select a principal axis, and we set our molecule in such a manner that the off diagonal element, that is the off diagonal element, you can see that alpha xy, alpha xz, alpha yx, alpha yz, then you can write down alpha zx, alpha zy comes out to 0. We can set them 0. So if you consider this matrix here, you see this alpha xx, alpha yy, and alpha zz is known as a trace here. And this is basically a diagonal elements, this matrix. The remaining element, that is the off diagonal elements. So what is our problem? That by selecting the coordinate axis and studying the tensor analysis, one can set the coordinate axis and select the principal axis in such a manner that you can you can terminate uh, all the off diagonal elements, and you can make them 0, and you can have only the diagonal element that will be non-zero, and one can calculate the characteristic of a system. So you have basically a set of numbers, this alpha xx, alpha xy, alpha xz, which basically specify the characteristic of a system, and that is studied with the help of a tensor. I will teach you when we start the numerical problems for solving the polarizability of some complex molecule, where I would like to teach you how to set a coordinate axis and what is actually a tensor. So that we will see when we study the numerical problems related to the polarizability. Well, friends, now once you understand the polarization of a molecule, now let us understand the alignment of the molecules. And basically, I want to teach you the alignment of polar molecules. I know that you people understand the meaning of the polar molecules and non-polar molecules, because there are certain molecules in nature which consisting a permanent dipole moment. I mean to say that the molecule in which center of mass of the positive charges and center of mass of the negative charges, they do not coincide at the same point. Such molecules are treated as polar molecules. You know, whenever you take a molecule is basically a union of atoms. You have a diatomic molecule, you have a triatomic molecule, you have a polyatomic molecule. Let us consider the case of a homonuclear molecule. Suppose you consider the case of a homonuclear molecule, suppose you consider the H2 molecule. So in the case of H2 molecule, you have two hydrogen atoms, and they are forming a bond, chemical bond between two hydrogen atoms. So you will have the two identical atoms, and whenever you have a two identical atom in a molecule, its molecule is considered as a homonuclear molecule. In the case of a homonuclear molecule, the center of mass of the positive charges and center of mass of the negative charges are coinciding in the same point. So there is this molecule does not possess a permanent dipole moment. So these molecules are basically known as a non-polar molecules. But at the same time, you consider a heteronuclear molecule. Let us take the case about HCl, or you may consider the case of HF molecule, or you consider the molecule of KCl. Such molecules are there. In the cases, both the atoms are not same, identical. You have a dissimilar atom. So whenever you have a dissimilar atom, and when you consider the molecule of a dissimilar atom, that is known as the heteronuclear molecule. In the case of a heteronuclear molecule, you will find that center of positive charges and the center of mass of the negative charges, they are not coinciding at the same point. So they behaves like a electric dipole. I mean to say that in the case of heteronuclear molecule, there is a separation between the two. Unlike equal charges, you have a positive charges, you have a negative charges. The magnitude of charge is same, because as a whole, your molecule is electrically neutral. So your molecule is behaving like a dipole, and you know the dipole basically it is consisting two equal unlike charges separated by a small distance d. So such molecule is behaving like a dipole, and so if you have a dipole, it possesses a dipole moment. So there is a permanent dipole moment. So those molecules which possess permanent dipole moment are treated as a polar molecules, and those molecules which does not have a permanent dipole moment, which are known as a non-polar molecule. But suppose when you keep a non-polar molecule in the electric field, and because of the application of the electric field, the induced moment, dipole moment will be induced. So you have an induced dipole moment. So friends, you will study a entire branch of physics at third year BSc, where you have to study the molecular spectroscopy. You have already studied the atomic spectroscopy, and so when you study the molecular spectroscopy, you will see the dipole moment plays a very important part. So you see the case of the hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, these molecules are homonuclear molecules and they are present in our Earth atmosphere, and the majority of the component is nitrogen in our atmosphere. And you see these molecules are a homonuclear molecule, and since these are the homonuclear molecule, they do not possess a permanent dipole moment. So this molecule will ultimately will not interact with the infrared radiation or a microwave radiation. So since they will not interact with infrared radiation, microwave radiation, you will see that because there is no interaction between the molecule and the infrared radiation, the microwave radiation, and that is why the communication is possible, right? So we whatever the mobile communication we receive the signal through the mobile is because the interaction, there is no interaction between the microwave and the nitrogen molecule present in the air. You just imagine, suppose if nitrogen molecules start interacting with the microwave or the far infrared radiation, then you will see the signal which is passing through the atmosphere will be attenuated because it will be absorbed by the molecules here. So this you please understand, and it is very important to understand the physics of the molecule. So here I explain the two different type of molecule. I gave you the concept of polar molecule. I gave you the concept of non-polar molecule. And now let us try to understand the alignment of polar molecule. Here I consider a very famous molecule and which you people are familiar. You see, I have a picture of the water molecule. Water molecule is a polar molecule and it possesses a dipole moment. The dipole moment of the water molecule is of the order of 6.1 into 10 raised to minus 30 coulomb into meter, right? This is in MKS unit. So you please remember the dipole moment of water molecule is comparatively large, and this is the reason why your water is the solvent. Uh, we use water as a solvent because this is the reason, because this dipole moment of the molecule is very large. You see, in the case of a polar molecule for water, this molecule is not a linear molecule. It is bent. It is a bent, and the angle is 105 degree. So when this if you see the structure of this molecule, it is found that majority of the electrons are accumulated towards the oxygen side. And since this molecule is bent at an angle 105 degree, your negative charge will appear at the apex here. And exactly opposite to the negative charge, you have the positive charge which are accumulated towards the hydrogen side. So I mean to say that your water molecule is behaving like a dipole because you have most of the electrons are accumulated towards the oxygen side at this apex, and exactly opposite to the negative charges you have the accumulation of the positive charges towards the hydrogen side. So you have basically two equal unlike charges separated by a small distance d, So this water molecule behaves like a dipole, and you have a dipole moment. And so it possesses a permanent dipole moment, and the permanent dipole moment, which I said, it is 6.1 into 10 raised to minus 30 coulomb into meter, and that's why it's a very good solvent. And now you see, when you keep your this molecule in the electric field, and because if you keep in the electric field, the positive charges of the dipole and negative charges of the dipole will experience a force. And now when they experience a force, well, let us try to understand what happens when the positive charge of the molecule and the negative charge of the molecule experience a force. You see here, I have applied my electric field along the x direction. Okay, and I said that the positive charge will experience a force, and because it experiences a force, the positive charge experience a force along the field direction. So there is a force which I represent as F plus. So I write down F plus, that is the force acting on the positive charges of the molecule. And similarly, you have in the negative charges, because your negative charges toward the oxygen side, and this because it experiences a force, and it will experience the force in the opposite direction. So there is a force acting in opposite direction. So you see, both the forces are equal in magnitude but opposite in nature. So the net force acting on the dipole is zero. But since both the forces are acting in opposite direction, your molecule experience a torque. So we want to calculate the torque experienced by that molecule. And once it experiences a torque, there is a rotation of a molecule, and your vector P will align in such a manner that it will be parallel to the electric. So this is we want to understand, and we will write down certain math equations, and this equation will describe that the molecule possesses the torque, and because of this torque there is a rotation, and because of this rotation your vector P, induced dipole moment P, will align along the field direction, and it will be parallel to the applied electric field. So to understand this concept, let us take a very simple example here. Consider you have a dipole, which I have considered. So consider that you have a dipole which is characterized by two charges. You have a negative charge which is placed at the point A, and you have a positive charge which is placed at the point B. And you see, I have applied a uniform electric field along x direction. This is the center of the dipole, and I consider a displacement vector d, which is measured from A to B. So this is from when you measure from A to B, you can write your vector d, displacement vector d, equal to dxi plus dyj plus dzk. Please remember this. So you can write down your vector d as a displacement vector. Now, if you take the center and if you measure a displacement from point O to B, it is represented by vector d by 2, because it's a center. So you can have vector d by, you can have a half of the vector d, which you can start measuring from O to B. Similarly, if you have the displacement from O to A, right, and I can write down this displacement vector by d by 2, 1 by 2 vector t with a minus sign, because I'm going in an opposite direction to the vector d here. Fine. So once you understand this notation of the displacement vector, I wrote here plus sign and here I wrote a minus sign because once you go towards the direction of from O to A, I'm going opposite to the direction of displacement vector from A to B. Okay, because we measure the displacement vector D in the direction from A to B, and that is the notation which we have mentioned as a vector D. Now you see that because you apply your electric field along x direction, your positive charge will experience a force. So I write down here a vector F with a subscript positive. That means it is indicate that the force acting on the positive charge on the dipole. And here I write down F minus, that is the force acting on the negative charge of the dipole. And you see both the forces, this positive charge, the force acting on the positive charges is in the direction of the applied field, and the force acting on the negative charge is F minus is in the opposite direction of the applied force. So because F plus, if you write down F plus in the magnitude, it will be equal to Q into the applied field E. And similarly, if you write down the magnitude of F minus, it will be equal to minus Q into E. So both the forces are having same magnitude. The magnitude of force acting on the positive charge and magnitude of the force acting on the negative charge is same. But they are acting in opposite direction. So we can say that the net force acting on a dipole is zero, because you can see the expression of net force is F1 square plus F2 square plus 2 F1 F2 cos theta, and you take its square root. F1 is F plus and F2 is F minus. So if you write down the resultant force acting on a dipole will be equal to square root of F1 square plus F2 square minus 2 F1 F2 cos theta. Since F1 and F2 are same, and here theta is angle pi, so cos pi is minus 1, so you will have the net force is equal to 0. But net force acting on the dipole is 0. But because both the forces are acting in opposite direction, your dipole will experience a torque with respect to the origin. Yeah. So this dipole will experience a torque, and we want to find out the expression of the torque. To find out the expression of the torque, let us write down the simple expression here. So now you see I wrote this expression here. Let us see this expression. So you see I wrote here that force on positive end is F plus. I write down QE. Exactly cancel the force on the negative charge is F minus is equal to minus Q, because charge at this point is Q minus. So I write down minus. Now we want to write down, there will be the torque with respect to the point O. So I want to write down the expression for this. And you know the expression of torque which you have studied in 12th standard. Torque is basically a vector product of vector position vector R. This vector R, right, cross F. So if you want to find out because of these positive charges, so if you want to find out the torque here, so this is the vector R. When you measure the vector R, that is you measure from O to B, that is vector R cross F. Vector R means from O to B, it is referred by vector 1 upon half D cross the force acting on the positive charges, that is F plus vector. So you see I write down the torque experienced by dipole here. You see I write down R plus cross force acting on the positive charges. Torque is basically R cross F. So to write down R cross F, R basically is a d by 2. So I write down R plus. And similarly, when you consider the negative charges again you take this vector R, but now when you measure this vector R, so this you are going opposite to the vector D. So I write down minus R. You see, I write down minus R minus, right, cross F bar, that is F negative. Now vector R is, as I mentioned, it is equal to 1 upon half vector D cross F plus force acting on the positive charges, which I can write down Q into E, plus, you know, R minus, which I mentioned, that is the here R minus. So that is the you measure the displace from O to A, that is D by 2, but you are going opposite the direction of the displacement vector D. So it is minus D by 2. So you see it's a minus D by 2 cross minus QE, because it is F minus. F minus is force acting on the negative charges. Negative charge is minus Q and applied field is E. So it is minus QE. So this minus sign and this minus sign cancels each other. And if you solve this vector, vector product, you can simplify this. You can take this factor as a common factor, and if you simplify, you can see that I take vector d by 2 cross ue vector as a common, and so inside the bracket you have become 1 plus 1 becomes 2, and these 2 and these 2, because it is a scalar, they cancels each other, and ultimately you get a q into vector d cross e. But this is a very important quantity which you have studied. This is q into d is basically a dipole moment. So your dipole moment p cross e. So a dipole in a uniform electric field experience a torque, and this is also you have studied at higher secondary level. So the torque experienced by a dipole in the electric field is always given by a vector product of vector P with the electric field E. This you have studied. So please remember this expression, that whenever you keep a dipole in a uniform electric field, the net force acting on the dipole is zero, but there is a rotation. Because of that, the dipole will align with the field direction, and it experience, because of it experience a torque. So please remember that since your dipole experience a torque, and because of the application of the torque, there will be a rotation in a dipole, and your vector P, that is the induced dipole moment vector P, will align the electric field, and because of this alignment your vector P becomes parallel to the applied electric field. This is the point which we will use it for frequently for many numerical problems here. So now, once you understand this exercise, let me explain the problem that whenever you take a molecular solid, which is made of molecules, let's say, and if you see that these molecules are polar molecules, then the polar molecules are randomly or oriented in a given sample. Suppose if I take a specimen, I take the upper part of this figure. Here I mention that each molecule of the sample is represented by a dipole. So you can see this dipole here. This is the head of the dipole, and this is the tail of a dipole. Okay, because you see this is and that this way you represent the dipole here. So this dipole, this is basically one molecule, this is another molecule, this is another molecule, and each molecule is represented as a dipole. And if it is a dipole, they have a dipole moment. So I represent by this dipole moment vector. So this is the dipole moment vector for one molecule. This is a dipole moment vector for another molecule. This is a dipole moment vector for another molecule. You see, they are all randomly oriented. Look at the directions of the dipole moment. They are scattered. So whenever you take any sample of a solid, and if the solid is consisting the molecules, and if these molecules are polar molecules, then you will have the microscopic picture of the solid will be like this, which is the case when there is no external field, because I write E equal to 0 here. But when you keep such sample uh, in the electric field where E is not equal to 0, you apply electric field to this sample, then all the dipole which are randomly oriented, you see the orientation is different, but all the orientation which was random, when you apply the electric field, as I said, because of the application of electric field, dipole will experience a torque, and once they experience a torque, the dipole moment vector P, induced dipole moment vector P, will align along the field direction. Then a vector P appears parallel to the electric field. But because of the thermal agitations in dipole, sometimes the vector P, because of the thermal agitations where your dipole vector P are vibrating, and that we will see when we write the thermal vibration, thermal agitations part for writing these equations, that we will discuss, not right now. But here, this picture represent this picture represent the polarization of a given sample, and we want to develop the rules for polarization. So my lecture number 3, we will see certain rules, and we want to write down the equations for polarization for a given solid that we will work out. And now, once you understand the concept of uh, torque and the working, the interaction of a dipole in a uniform electric field, if there would have been a non-uniform electric field, then you will have a force acting on a dipole. So in addition to a rotational motion, there will be a translation motion on a dipole. Here there is no translation motion because the field is uniform. There is no translation of a dipole. There is only a rotation in the dipole. But when you apply the electric field, and if the electric field is non-uniform, then in addition to a torque, your dipole also experience some net force. And because of this net force acting on a dipole, there will be some translation motion also. So let me write down expression of the net force acting on a dipole when the electric field is non-uniform. So in that case, let us try to understand a small picture which I have mentioned. Look at this picture. Here you have the minus Q charge, and you have the plus Q charge. The minus Q charge is kept at the point A, and the plus Q charge is kept at the point B. Friends, the electric field is non-uniform, and it is a space dependent. Let us say it is a space dependent electric field. So at the point A, the field strength is capital E, vector E. And if you see at the point B, the electric field is not E, but it is slightly greater. So the electric field, I write down vector E plus dE. You may write down E minus dE also. So the force acting on the negative charge will be equal to minus Q times vector E. Similarly, the force acting on the positive charge will be Q times vector E plus dE. I hope you understand this. So this, once you understand this, and if you see this forces, so I write down the force expression. The force expression is because the net force is acting on, because of the force acting on the positive charges, force acting on the negative charges. Force acting on the positive charges, I write down F equal to Q into bracket E plus minus E minus. You see that E plus means electric field acting at the positive charge. E minus means electric field acting on the negative charges. Electric field acting on the positive charges is capital vector E. E minus means electric field acting on the negative charges E plus dE. So if you take this vector addition, you will have the difference in electric field is dE, because this vector here the electric field is E, here the vector electric field is E plus dE. So the net electric field, you will see the net force acting on the dipole is equal to Q into dE. Please remember this dE, increment in electric field, which I said E plus dE. So please remember, I wrote the expression of F plus here. I wrote the expression of F minus here, and ultimately I get the expression of the net force acting on a dipole is equal to Q times dE. So you see, now let us apply the principle of vector calculus. You know that vector E, when you write in a Cartesian coordinate system, uh, D means change in E, dE means change in E. So it is Q. So I write down Q. This is change in. So I write down electric field in the three components, because I solve in a Cartesian coordinate system. So I write down EXI plus EYJ plus EZK. So D means change in electric field. So now you can write down this. So derivative of EXI, EYJ, so you can write down change in X component, change in Y component, change in Z component. So if you want to write down this expression, so I can write down Q into DEXI plus DEYJ plus DEZK, and Q is outside the bracket. And now you can use rules for partial total derivative. One can write down change in X component DEX. DEX, change in X component of the electric field, is equal to delta EX by delta X. That is the partial derivative of EX with respect to X into DX plus partial derivative of EX with respect to Y into DY plus partial derivative of EX with respect to Z into DZ. This you have studied uh, when you study the total partial derivative. So now I can rearrange this equation. You see, this equation can be rearranged. You can see this is basically a scalar product of these two vector. Which is the scalar product of two vector? I can write down dxi plus dyj plus dzk dot del by del x vector I, del by del y vector j plus del by delta z. You can see here I dot I is 1. So it is giving you dx del by del x operating on ex. You will get the first factor. And I dot j is 0. I dot k is 0. Now you have a j dot I is 0, but j dot j is 1. So you get now, you see dy into del by del y operating on ex. So this is, you got this component you get here. So this change in x component can be written as scalar product of these two vectors. Now you see this is dxi plus dyj plus dzk. This is simply nothing but your displacement vector from A to B. This is your vector. This is your point A. This is your point B. When you move from A to B, you are displacing by amount of dl. So this is your dl vector, which we have already mentioned previously, and this is a del operator, right? So this is a dl dot del operating on ex. So basically, you know that dex, that is the change in x component, right? Change in x component, the dex is given by this relation. Similarly, you can write down for y, so you have to, instead of writing ex, you write down ey. Similarly, you can write down for z, instead of x, you write down z. So it is these equations. So you have calculated dex, you have calculated dey, total change in x component, total change in y component, total change in z component. You have calculated this. And now you have equation number 1. This is your equation number 1. So in this equation number 1, you substitute dex, you substitute dey, dez, you substitute dez. So now I will substitute the value of dex here. You look at that, there is a unit vector I, unit vector j, unit vector k is already here. So now you will see the next step. I am keeping the value of this. So you see I wrote this value. So dex, I put the dex. So dex equal to dl, displacement vector dl dot d. I keep for dx this value here. Then I keep ex, because this is dex equal to dl dot d. So this is ex, and then is a vector I. So vector I have to write down this vector I. Then dey. So dey is equal to dl dot delta into ey. You can see here I write down dl dot delta ey. This is basically dey, and vector j is here. This vector, so this vector j is remaining as it is, and I simply put the value of dey, and dey, you see I have this dey value is here. This value I'm keeping here, and similarly you see I put the value of dez, and so dez is del dot del, so del dot into ez, and you have vector k. Okay, so this q is already there because you have the, so this q I'm keeping as it is. Now you see dl dot delta vector is here. You have a d vector dl dot delta is also present here, and you have a scalar product of vector dl dot del is also here. So I can take this factor common. So I took this factor outside this bracket. So you have a q, and the factor is taken outside. So it is I take this factor outside. So q into dl dot del into the bracket I wrote exy plus eyz plus ezk, because this is exi, so this remains as exi. You have a eyj, so here you have a uyj, and similarly zk. And you see this exi plus eyj plus ezk is an electric field acting at the point A. So that is where in a Cartesian coordinate system. So I write down E. So I can write down E, and I rearrange the term. You see dl dot d, because this is a scalar quantity. So either I can write it here or I write it here. No problem. So dl dot delta into vector E. So once again, you know, I want to introduce the concept of dipole moment. So this is your vector dl. So I can have a magnitude of charge q. So I can take the product of q with vector dl here. So I can rewrite this equation by writing q dl dot del operating on this q. You please, this is, please take care. This is there is a printing mistake. This q you have to cancel, dear friends. So because q I have already taken, so this q dl dot del operating, you see, fine. So this is the vector E, right? So here you please write down that is P dot delta, and this is basically a small error which I have to rectify, that this Q is already taken here. So please try to understand this expression here, that the force acting on the dipole will be equal to the scalar product of vector P with the del operator, and this scalar product operates on the external electric field E. Please remember. So there is a printing mistake at this step, and there is a printing mistake at this step. So once again I am repeating, please try to understand the net force acting on the dipole is equal to dl dot the del operator, and this scalar product is operating on vector E into Q. Since Q is a scalar quantity, I can combine this Q with vector dl. So this is Q dl, and it is operated. So this Q is extra here. Please remember this Q is extra. Now QdL is basically a Q into dl, that is a charge into the distance, is giving you a dipole moment. So QdL is the dipole moment. It is known as the induced dipole moment. So it is a vector P. So net force acting on the dipole equal to the product of vector P with del operator, and this product, if you take this scalar product, multiply, it is operating on vector E. Please remember, this is here, this is not Q, but it is vector E. So net force acting on the dipole will be equal to P dot del into vector E. So please remember, whenever you keep a dipole in a non-uniform electric field, it will experience a net force, and the expression of the net force acting on the dipole is equal to vector P dot del operator operating on the electric field. So you have to write down here P dot del into vector E. We will take some numerical problem for the dipole in a non-uniform electric field, where you will understand how to compute net force acting on a dipole. So next lecture I will teach you the rules for polarization, and we will take several examples also. So I will stop here. Next lecture we will study for the polarization and the rules for polarization we will establish. Thank you.